Hi and welcome back everyone to another episode here on Rabbit Hole Stories, where today we've got to speak to a Bitcoin CEO. It's not every day we get to speak to one.
I know. I think we've got through the whole Relay team, right?
We still have Adam left, but he just approved my inquiry via email, so technically speaking, yes.
Sure. For CEO of a huge European Bitcoin exchange, he was so chill, and he was like the definition of stay humble, stack sacks.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, what I took from the episode was it was interesting because he started off being interested in psychology, and it's nice to see him putting that in practice. And he gave everyone a bit of advice about all that. So that was a nice little takeaway for me. What about you?
Yeah, I would also say I think it was the first time we had the topic of mental health addressed in the show, so that was cool.
Yeah, that's true.
I had to smile a bit in the edit now, where I sort of went through and he was like, one evening I'm meeting with my girlfriend, then with my friends, my family, and then I don't have any evenings more left. So I kind of went like, oh, okay, we're all the same one way or another.
Yeah.
He had a very level head with the whole Apple banning Relay thing, so that was also pleasantly surprised. And yes, Julian is sort of the stay humble and stack sats persona if you want to look for someone. And it was definitely a great episode if you want to know what it feels like, how to run a Bitcoin company and how sort of life at investors and all around it is. So don't want to hold you back any longer. Have fun listening in, guys, to this one with Julian. Julian, how has your day been so far?
Hi, Joel. Thank you. Very good. How are you?
Good.
We were just, before we were recording, admiring the work of art behind you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because you were saying it's from an artist over in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's a Silicon Valley, I think San Francisco-based artist. She did this for me. It's a unique picture, a canvas. So it's kind of like, it's really, it looks and feels valuable. It was not that expensive, but I really like the look and feel and touch of it. And I could ask her to use our Relay colors as well. So this is the Relay blue with some white and with obviously the Bitcoin orange. So she really did an amazing job, I think. And there's no other picture out there that is the same. And that was really important for me, especially after I got a lot of shit for the picture that I had behind me before, which looked like a cheap map. Apparently, it was actually orders of magnitude more expensive than this one. But it's all perception is reality. So I'm very happy with the outcome now.
That's very true. Talking about perception and reality, we're very interested in our Rabbit Hole Stories about your journey into Bitcoin and where you are in that rabbit hole now. So we like to dive in by asking people how they discovered Bitcoin, when was it, and what was going on in your life then, why you chose to stay, and what is it you're doing now. So maybe we can just kick off with doing that, Julian.
Yeah, great series of questions. So in my case, it was 2015. I was, need to calculate. I think I was like 22, 23-ish. So I'm 30 now. And it was at the beginning of my bachelor studies. I was studying psychology and business administration. So it's really not nothing to do with technology. But I remember I was sitting in the living room with a friend of mine who actually studied informatics and tech, and he was a tech geek, and so we're playing video games or something like that, and he started talking about Bitcoin, but also other cryptocurrencies. Like he named Ripple, Namecoin, and the Ethereum was gonna come out soon, and he wanted to participate in the ICO of Ethereum and blah blah blah. And so he explained me a lot about these things, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what is this? Like, from a tech perspective, I had no idea. But I was interested in investing in stocks and trading and finance already at that time a little bit, because I was studying also business administration. So he showed me on his laptop what this is all about, and I was like, oh, now I get it. Like, this is basically stocks. It's basically assets. It's basically trading, speculating. And then I understood that, okay, all of these kind of logos that he showed me that had a price that was updating like every second, they were actually assets that had a price fluctuation, that had supply and demand, similar like stocks and gold and real estate and bonds and all these other assets, but they're digital. So they only exist on the internet, and they're apparently decentralized in nature. And apparently you could trade them 24/7 without the permission of any bank or central bank or government. No one could influence it. And so it's decentralized, it's neutral, it's borderless, all that kind of stuff. And it's open to everyone. I was like, wow, this could actually be quite interesting. Also, like, this could have other use cases than just gambling, just speculating, just trading. And so I got back home really psyched. I didn't know what it was, but like the principles felt really interesting to me, and that it felt like, wow, this could be kind of an innovation that is changing how we live as a society, how we trade, and like as an economy, and how our financial system is built globally. So this could be potentially really, really disruptive, one of the most disruptive innovations of this century. So more and more, like, this seed was planted, and more it started to grow into not only hobby, but really also kind of where I spent a lot of time in investing and researching. So I bought $500 of Bitcoin. It was too complicated to do myself. So for $500, I bought one Bitcoin at that time. It was too complicated to do it myself. So I asked this friend whether he could do it for me, and he was like, sure. He invested in everything, like in all of these coins, just a little bit, but just he put a little bit, like $100 in all of these coins, and he made money and lost money, whatever. But then I asked him to just, Bitcoin, maybe one Bitcoin. I want to own one, and then it shot up in price within a week, like plus 10% or 20% or whatever. And then I said, sell it again. So I thought I was the most, smart guy in the world for making
the new Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, but then I ended up with no Bitcoin again, which was stupid in hindsight. But so the more I learned about it, the more I really thought, like, this can be an interesting investment on the long run. And so in 2017 is really where it clicked for me, and where I was like, okay, I need to put a significant amount of money, if not the majority of my money, into Bitcoin. I traded a lot of shitcoins and participated in ICO, so I did that. I burned my fingers there as well, and I learned this lesson: Bitcoin is actually fundamentally different than all the other crypto assets. And so in 2018, 2019, I really also then started to want to really also professionally be involved in this space, and that's where I decided to leave my job, well paid job, and make myself self-employed with a first company where we did mainly consulting. We founded the company with Bitcoin as a collateral, which we were the first in the canton of Zurich in Switzerland that did that. And then there's also an education course that evolved out of it, which is also a company now. It's basically the leading education provider for the Swiss financial sector, so for banks and asset managers when it comes to crypto finance. It's kind of a nice business still going, that I co-founded. And then I came to co-found Relai, which is obviously my main job and my main baby right now.
Amazing. So before you even did the traditional Bitcoin story, you're already a whole coiner, then got rid of the coin and got back into it. So that's a cool story. You mentioned it is your baby now, Relai. And I guess what a lot of people from the outside looking in, or maybe even in the industry, don't realize is a lot of these Bitcoin businesses, it's not like we have huge backers or, huge financial institutions in the background like some altcoin projects do. It really is being able to survive and grow out of that community and things you build. Your daily insight, Julian, like, what goes on for you as a CEO at Relai? What are sort of your daily tasks? What do you need to do? Because it's not just stacking sats, it's obviously also the whole business perspective around it.
Yeah. So I don't know if we are maybe positioned and built a bit differently. I agree with you that most of the Bitcoin only startups, they didn't really have funding They didn't build big teams. Some of them or most of them didn't even want to do that, or some want but don't achieve it because Bitcoin only is still much of a niche. So it's really hard, and there are good times when there's a bull market, but also bad times when there's a 2-year bear market, like I think we are in right now. So I think most of the Bitcoin only companies are really like hustlers. They're bootstrapping and they're doing an amazing job, but they have small teams with they're just doing their thing on a day to day. They're growing slower, I would say. And I think we have different ambitions. So Relay really is going this venture capital, fast growth startup route. We want to be very, very big. We want to become a kind of a globally operating unicorn in the next decade. And we want to bring like millions, if not billions of people into Bitcoin. So therefore, we also, from the beginning, had a fundraising strategy. Like we wanted to bring angel investors, crowd equity, and also venture capitalists in. So we raised already more than 7 million in these 3 years that we are live on the market. And so therefore, and we've built a team of 20 people. We are now at more than 200K app downloads, 70K active users. We have a volume between 8 and 10 million a month that is invested in Bitcoin. Like we're selling thousands of Bitcoins. So we're at another, I think, level than most of the other Bitcoin only companies. Not to say that this like good or bad, right? We're just like we're taking another route here, trying to make this really, really big. Also taking more risks, obviously. So as a day-to-day, like in the day-to-day business for me, this means that a big part of my job is fundraising and investor relations. So obviously these people that giving or these institutions that are giving you these millions, they also want some reporting. They also want to have a say. You have meetings with them, you brainstorm with them, you plan things, you have strategic discussions and so forth. They're also helping a lot with making connections, helping to develop the business and expand the business and so forth. So that's a big part. Another big part is then like internally the building and managing the team. So we have 20 like rockstar employees. These need to be recruited. Sometimes there's fluctuations, so people are coming and going. You need to introduce new people to the team. You need to make sure that they have everything they need in terms of tools, processes, structures. It's just management, internal meetings, decisions to make, and so forth. And then to the outside, like this is inside of the business, to the outside of the business, there's a lot to do as well in kind of representing the company, doing things like this here right now, talking to podcasts, talking to an audience, also doing interviews like PR, media, press releases, writing, posting online, just get the word out, right? We also participate in award shows and competitions. Just basically I do everything to make Relay as a brand more known. And this is actually also a big part of my job, right? And then the rest that is not filled with this is just communication, a lot of communication on so many different channels. Like you can imagine every time I open my phone, it's like bling, 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 all these notifications are going crazy. So I try to do whatever I can to really respond to the majority of these messages and emails and just keeping things going. And it's a super interesting job, and I haven't learned as much in my previous 27 years that I learned in the last 3 years doing this. So I'm super happy.
It must take up so much of your mental space. And just understanding Bitcoin and being in the Bitcoin space as a Bitcoiner, I'm forever sort of churning over Bitcoin in my mind, and that's true, I think, for a lot of people that are in the Bitcoin ecosystem. But on top of that, you've also have got a company that you're trying to manage and obviously doing a very good job at being a success at that. So when do you get downtime? And I remember you was talking about your studies in psychology. Is there any insight you can give us as in the Bitcoin space about how to stay mentally capable and not lose ourselves down the Bitcoin rabbit hole?
Yeah, that's a very important topic, I think, to stay mentally kind of sane. Because as you said, like it's easy to burn out because you just all the time you want to think about Bitcoin, you want to think about the business and how to make it better and more successful, and you want to be on social media interacting with everyone. You want to do all this, but you should also sleep. You should also eat. You should also work out. You should also take some holidays from time to time. You should also have a social environment with friends and family and a girlfriend maybe. So it's really hard to juggle all these different aspects of life. But I think partly in the psychology studies and also just in life, I've learned, at least for myself, that it's super important to have a balance between these things. So there are these people like let's say Elon Musk that basically just have one mission and then 24/7 they just do this and they don't burn out somehow. But I think for most of us, we need this diversification of things, and we need to change our minds and try to get into different modes where we don't think about these other things, so the mind can actually rest. And a lot of times I think good ideas as well are coming from these times you are resting. There's a lot of studies on how important sleep is, for example, like to have actually 8 or 9 hours of sleep. If you have a job like a very demanding job like being a CEO is just a requirement. Basically, there's so many people that are having demanding jobs that sleep 5-6 hours a night, and they can get by, but there's also studies that show that they're basically almost like drunk, so they have the same mental state as if you have like 1 promille, like so if you drank like 3 or 4 beers the whole day. So how can you make good decisions? How can you be productive? How can you manage other people's time if you're in this mental state of basically being drunk, right? One big job of, I think, a CEO or an entrepreneur or whoever has a very demanding job with a lot of responsibilities and a lot of stress is to be able to manage yourself, to manage your time, and to manage your energy. This is something I constantly work on. I try to read a lot on how to improve there. I try to have mentors telling me how this works, and so really it is about, yes, having 8 to 10 hour work days where you are very productive in these time, but then also being able to make the cut and like this work-life balance and do other things. Like I try to work out 4 times a week. I try to have at least 2, if not 3 evenings with my girlfriends, at least 1 evening with my friends, at least 1 evening with my family, and then that's already all the evenings, right? I try to travel from time to time as well. I try to eat well. I try to sleep 8 hours every night. So I think these are the things that if you want to do this on the long run, I mean, you can get by 1 or 2 years, right? But if you want to do this for 10 years, it's a necessity. You need to manage yourself, and you need to get this balance. And creating a startup, building a startup, especially in such a dynamic, ever-changing industry like Bitcoin, there's also nascent still, so there's so much volatility and uncertainty everywhere. Especially there, it is really a marathon and not a sprint, and so you want to be prepared, and it's up to you to take this responsibility and work on it basically every day.
And I guess it's not only the so having your schedule in place with like your private life, social life, and your work. I guess especially in your work, there's a lot of explanation in a sense again, because I imagine a lot of your investors are probably crypto investors and not Bitcoin only investors. So I kind of imagine you have to re-say a lot of stuff over and over again, or sort of reassure people of Relay's vision. Was that something with your investors, which you were quite fortunate where you did not have to explain that you take up Bitcoin and then Solana and all of the other crap that's out there? Or is there always this question like when, whatever token?
Yeah, so one point is that we do have actually a big amount or a big portion of our investors are Bitcoin only, so they have understood that. But that's not by design. Like it's not necessarily because we were only looking to talk to these kind of investors. It's more like because they were in the end more interested in investing in us than others, because they just got it. Like they have understood this long-term vision of Bitcoin, and we align very well with that. We have talked to a lot of crypto and fintech investors, and some of them invested in us, but most of them ended up being more interested in, you know, DeFi and NFTs and stuff like that. So, and in the end, it's, I think, a good thing. Like if you don't see the world in the same way, then you should not collaborate, right? So that's one point. The other is, yes, we need to do a lot of explanation, and I think especially as a CEO and as a startup in general, you need to repeat the same thing all over and all over again, because you know you need to tell the world about your vision. The world doesn't know yet, so you need to tell your employees, your partners, your investors, the media, your users, influencers, content creators, the world. You need to tell them all over and all over again. This is by a lot of repetition. There are some interesting videos of these great idols that we all have, like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Steve Jobs as well, where they repeat and repeat and repeat like the same sentence all over again for 10 or 20 years. You know, it's that's the job, I think, of a leader, to really bring a message alive. So yeah, it's an interesting field to be in, for sure. Like this Bitcoin only narrative is only just really getting started, and when we were fundraising, it was definitely very hard to explain. And most of these investors in the end did not get it, or did not jump on this narrative. So they said no. There were some exceptions, but as said, I think we have now more than 50% of really Bitcoin only investors, both in kind of the angel investor part and also in the VC part. So, for example, Ego Death Capital, which is led by Jeff Booth and great advisors like Lynn Alden and Preston Pish and all these guys. They're obviously a Bitcoin only fund. Oleg Mikalski from Fulgur Ventures, they're a Bitcoin only fund, and they're in our cap table. Lightning Ventures is a Bitcoin only angel syndicate. Mike Jarmuth, they're invested in us. Time Chain, which is also Time Chain Ventures, led by Alex Mann, another Bitcoin only fund. They're all invested in us. We also have kind of more traditional general VCs like Red Alpine Ventures, who invested in N26, the second biggest neobank in Europe with an 8 billion valuation. They are basically betting on us as their Bitcoin only bet, but they also have crypto bets and other fintechs, and like they invest also in medtech and a lot of other stuff. And then we have Capreed Capital, which is kind of in between. They're a crypto fund, so they invest in a lot of crypto stuff, NFT, DeFi, whatever, but they also acknowledge that there's this Bitcoin only sector, this Bitcoin only narrative that is growing in popularity, and they also want to have this Bitcoin only bet.
That's super encouraging and super bullish, and you've got some really great clients under your belt, essentially, and you know it's great to hear. And you've got, like you said, a rock star team behind you, and it was a pleasure to have met your team over in Prague just the week just gone, and it's very clear to me that you're all very hardworking and diligent in what you do, and passionate with the mission of Relai. And essentially you've got a powerhouse of people that are very recognizable in the space amongst Bitcoiners, because I was watching from afar, and there's a lot of recognition for the Relay team. So well done to you and all the hard work. And like you said, that diligence and repetitiveness of the message that you're trying to put out there is obviously paying off. Yeah, apart from the fact that, you know, one particular member of your team, he invests in animals that don't produce a yield. I'm talking about the Arsen's chickens here, and how he's brought into a scam of hens that don't lay any eggs. But no, you've got a great team behind you, so well done for you on that.
He also invests in cats, I think. Yeah. Yeah, he's a good guy. It's definitely a must follow on Twitter, Satoshi Baggins.
Yes.
Yeah,
he's
boring.
definitely one to follow. Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're ever at a conference hanging out with him, just make sure that he has his Lightning wallet with him and that he's ready to go, because sometimes he tends to wander off and leave you in the dark. I hope he sees this. I think he'll have a smile on his face.
Talking of Lightning, and you were talking about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and mentioning Steve Jobs. There's this whole thing coming out at the moment with Apple and Lightning payments. Is there anything that's going to affect you there? And what are your thoughts about this new approach that Apple are now starting to block all these apps?
Yeah, it already happened to us, actually. I think we were the pioneer there. We were the first. I don't know if there's something we can be proud of, but we were the first.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. We were the first to be blocked and delisted, but also relisted, and now we're approved again in certain countries at least. So we have done this journey already, which now probably Damus and Zeus and whoever other applications have this trouble now. They need to go through it. It's very unfortunate. Some people say, well, this is part of Operation Choke's point. Others say that this is just Apple being super diligent and cautious about regulation, and I don't know, probably the truth lies somewhere in between. But so yeah, our story there was that it all began after the FTX collapse and like Celsius, BlockFi, all this big mess end of last year in like November. I think it was the first time that they approached us. And they said basically, look, we need, we're blocking you, so you cannot release any new updates until you have provided sufficient proof that you're actually able to legally operate in these all these European countries. We're like, okay, no worries, we can deliver like our Swiss license and the legal opinion of a lawyer that says basically, okay, this company with this license, they can operate in whole Europe. Bam, done. We submitted it and we thought like, okay, this couple of days and then they will let us release again. Well, that was unfortunately not the case. It turned out to be very hard to communicate with Apple. It's a very one-sided communication, and you wait a long time until you get any feedback. So a couple of weeks later, when we finally got a feedback, they said, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is fine, but this is not enough. We also need this and that." So we had a long dialogue until February this year. And then in February, they finally said, okay, you're approved, you can go. Good. So we could do another release. But 1 week later, we got the same message again that we got in November. So they started the whole process again. So this also shows you like how they are organized. It's a huge company and it's a big mess. And obviously they have to check thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of these apps. So it's hard for them as well, I understand. But it's very frustrating. So we had to start this whole process again. But this time they didn't accept what we delivered. So in April, actually, after a lot of back and forth, they just blocked and delisted us. So not only we could not release new versions of the app, which is already bad for us, obviously, they just delisted us from all the stores. Like the whole app we will not be found in any app store in any country, not even in Switzerland, where we have our headquarters and our main license, right? They just delisted us. So 100,000 plus devices had our app, but they could not do any update, and no one else could just download the app, right? So this is obviously very bad for our business and for our reputation and everything. So we went back and we got, I think after 2 weeks, we got at least Switzerland released again with our Swiss license. It's very obvious that we are able to operate here. And then they said, okay, for all the other countries, you need to provide us with a legal memo or legal opinion from a local law firm in this country for every country separately. So we started with Germany. I paid a shitload of money to some law firm that created us this legal memo, and then it was accepted by Apple like 3 weeks later or something. It all takes a long time. Okay, so we're back in Germany. Now we did the same for Austria, which is also fine. We are now working on the same for Italy, which is also an important market. But we will need to stop at like a handful of markets, right? We cannot do this for 40 countries. It would be way too much effort and way too expensive. But at least we got out of it like somehow. At least we have a way to, get back to the most important markets. But we will not get back to all 40 European countries on the App Store. Remember that for Android, everything's fine. Like they didn't care. Yeah. For Android, we were still live in all these 40 countries. It's all fine. So it's not a regulatory thing. It's really an Apple policy thing. They want to do this. They don't have to do this. But then on the long run, we will do this now. We will unlock the most important countries, which may be like 5 in Europe. And for the rest, we are waiting until we have the MiCA license. So we start applying soon for the MiCA license. This will take 9 to 12 months. And with this EU-based license, not the Swiss license, the EU license, this will be accepted by Apple. It will enable us to actively market in all the European countries. And then with this, we should be fine again. But it's a big trouble. So imagine like this is not something for small apps that just want to do some lightning stuff. They don't have these licenses, they don't have all of these resources, these legal and compliance people in-house that we have. So it's definitely a very bad development for the whole Bitcoin and crypto industry.
And I imagine you were sort of sitting between, 2 rows, because at the one end, you sort of had to wait for MiCA, because we knew it was coming, but they always delayed it. I'm not going to get into how punctual Brussels is. And then on the other end, you sort of had like, well, we can show you all of these legal waivers and such, but like, we're not going to pay like probably tens of thousands just for a signed copy by a lawyer. So it's a weird timing in between. Did that somehow... Is Apple a big part of your user base, or is it more or less split between Android and iOS?
It's pretty much 50-50. Okay. I think a little bit, I think maybe 55% Android even, and 45% Apple, but it's pretty much 50-50, and it also changes depending, like sometimes, like I think at the beginning it was a bit more Apple focused, and I think lately it became a bit more Android focused, but in the end it's 50-50, and these two platforms really have a monopoly, or a very, without them it's super hard to scale. If you want to scale only on one or even on none of them as a mobile app, you're not going to make it. You need both, and so they have a lot of power. They have the ability to restrict or slow down a whole industry, unfortunately.
Sorry, Julian, what do you think has been their motivation for doing all this?
So I don't know. Either there's really an agenda to work together with governments to try to, keep this industry low, or like to try to, suppress this development of Bitcoin and crypto. This could be so not to lose for the elites, for the governments and the central banks. They would work together with these big app platforms to suppress the development of an independent money, because they would lose power if they would just let this go. So, and they know they cannot just criminalize it at this point. It's hard to just ban it now. It's coming too far. So there's other way. They're exploring other ways to stop it. That would be like the the approach of, or the idea of, okay, they have an agenda. The other is maybe they're just very prudent, and they don't want to get into legal trouble. That's why they take a pioneer spot in, before even Mika and SEC and these guys come and say, hey, you need to check all these apps. They take a prudent and forward-looking approach and already check the apps before, so that they only have the quote-unquote clean, very regulated apps on the store, so that they can basically, keep a white file. You know what I mean? So I don't know what it is. It could be both. I think it's more the second, though. I'm not much into conspiracy theory, because then in that case also Google and also a lot of big banks, and it would be a more coordinated approach with media and everything. Here I see it's only kind of Apple that is doing it, and Google is not doing it at all. So I feel like it's more a legal compliance strategy from Apple. But I'm not sure. I would be interested also to hear your thoughts or maybe others. I'm not sure why exactly they're doing it. They also don't say it. I think it's just on us to assume what it could be.
I think it's a bit of a mix of both, because I was actually just finishing up an article about the very topic with daemons and SUS and these things. And when I researched, I saw, okay, with SUS, for example, when you submit the app, you can basically add descriptions, what did you update and all of these things. And they did not understand how my basically stuff on the Lightning Network works, for that matter. And they thought SUS was like a exchange, when in fact they are they're not even the wallet. They just provide you the opportunity to connect your node and other connection points in the Lightning Network. So I think a big part of it is unknowingness by Apple, sort of how stuff works, which is understandable. Tech evolves 24/7 these days, so it's hard to keep up. And I think it's what you said. They want to be on the safer side of things. They don't want to submit another Celsius or another Luna or whatever, and sort of be part of the whole scapegoat thing. Because if users lose money, what's the first two things they approach? It's probably the company and probably Apple, hey, why did you let this app on here? But I'm curious, if it happens again, so let's say, for example, it would happen on Google, what were your learnings out of the whole Apple situations? Are you thinking of, Daemons is probably thinking now, a web-based solution? Or what are sort of the learnings and takeaways from your end?
We thought about that. But it's just a very different product in the end, right? And it's another target audience you would go after. Most people that have the mobile app today, wouldn't really take the offer of, oh, hey, the mobile app is not working anymore, here, use the web app. It's just really not the same. And I really believe that the future is mobile. It's already, even the presence is mobile. It's with almost every fintech app. Let's take Revolut as an example. They have 80% of their activity is really mobile. Same with Bitpanda, the Coinbase, the big exchanges. They are used on the mobile. Not that much. Only as a complementary service. They're also web based. But I don't think that's necessarily an alternative. I don't think we could have done anything else to prevent it from happening. It's really, if you want to be mobile, that's unfortunately how the world is today, then you need to deal with these two big kind of monopoly companies and platforms, because they own the hardware and they own the platform, which is crazy actually if you think about it. That the way applications are brought to the 8 billion people in the world is really dominated by two players. But that's unfortunately how it is. Of course, you can move into a web application framework. You can move into decentralized app platforms. You go into alternative app platforms, but 99% of the activity is just on these two others. So unfortunately, maybe my learning was that we are just slaves of these. In the end, as a company, there's really nothing you can do. Like Coinbase, for example, is now starting this war with SEC. Look, it's not gonna end well. I'm sorry. It's just they are too big. It's not even David versus Goliath. It's really it's really like it's a truck against a cycle or something.
Yeah,
It's
exactly,
there's no way. You don't even try to fight them. We also thought about, we can go public. We have a 30,000 plus followers on Twitter. Like let's spread some hate on Apple and stuff. They don't give a shit. They don't care. They are too big. They don't care whether we are in the App Store with our 200,000 app downloads or not. Really not. They have the full power. So either you work with them, you get regulated, and this takes some time, and maybe it will destroy parts of your business in the meantime. But there's just no other way. I would like I have a very libertarian and crypto anarchist view of the world, so I would like to have it in a different way. I would like to see the world developing in a different way, but unfortunately, if we're honest with ourselves, it's just we're at the mercy of these big platforms, and the only way to offer our service, and Bitcoin for that matter, to millions of people is through these app stores, is through the traditional banking system as well. We need to integrate with traditional finance as well, and we need to get highly regulated. It's unfortunately, otherwise we would just stay a niche player.
I think this is what a lot of people in the Bitcoin space and on Bitcoin Twitter often confuse. I see it because I still have a few gold clients, so I saw it in the gold world, or I had to learn it, where the asset, which you could look at Bitcoin as an asset, as a network, whatever, but fact of the matter is regulators look at it as like, I can trade this stuff for a price, so it's an asset. Luckily, they seem to get that it's more commodity based and not a security, so that's good on us. That thing can be unregulated, but you have to regulate the on and off ramps. And in that matter, you sort of have to provide guidelines and frameworks and these things. So I think inevitably we'll lead down this road where you will have, like you guys, regulated on ramps. You're also an off ramp, right? I never pay out of it. I just buy with you guys, so I don't know. Cool. So you can go both ways. Maybe, especially in Europe, we get lucky because I think one of the proposals with Apple was that they also offer some form of APK solution like Google is doing. So who knows, that might solve your problem. But I think it's an interesting aspect to look at it and go, well, either way, you're kind of screwed. So instead of fighting it because you lose anyway, try and find your way in the system and get going, which from the seams of it, like you managed to get up in the most important country. So now we just go one step at a time.
Exactly.
Do you see a future where it will be less of a David versus Goliath battle? Do you see a vision of future where there will be a less dominance in this kind of space, or do you think they would just become a bigger beast?
No, I think especially with Bitcoin dominating more and more and becoming more and more prevalent, the decentralization of power as well will move forward. The separation of money and state is definitely taking a lot of power away from the state, from governments. Not sure about the app stores. There we would need to build more decentralized foundations, like for example maybe Nostr is doing, but not sure because the network effects of these big tech players just so advanced. The internet is so monopolized. I have a hard time really realistically thinking that this will change soon. But what I'm sure will change is the power of the state will go down, because people trust the state less, and the state will lose the monopoly on money. So they will also not be able to finance all this shit forever. And therefore, I see definitely a future where the Bitcoiners, and this will be the majority of the people, like the people itself that hold Bitcoin, have more power and have more a say of what kind of regulations they think make sense and whatnot. Because right now it's basically a small elite of politicians and kind of political leaders and central banks that are making these regulatory decisions. It will become more democratic because it now basically it's voted by dollars, and dollars can be printed by these guys. So they print their own voting tickets, right? With Bitcoin, it's proof of work. You need to earn it. You need to pay for it with a real asset, and then the voting tickets will be much harder to get and much more distributed. And actually, these guys that have them now in 10 years will have it's not the same guys that will have the majority of Bitcoin. So that's why I think Bitcoin is really changing the world to a better. It will make a more democratic system. And a society that will be more independent and less dominated by the governments and also by the financial system, the banks. The third big monopoly there, the app stores, I'm not sure if that will change that much. But let's see. I'm not sure, to be honest. The only thing I'm sure is that everything is good for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will make its way and will create a better future. How exactly startups and entrepreneurs and businesses are still on the mercy of regulators, I think it will also change to the better. I mean, it will decrease, but it's definitely not going away. Like in the next 10 years, there will still be these bigger players that are kind of moats, that are gatekeepers, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess we'll always, if you actually go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it lowers your time preference. We all know this, but it also lowers sort of your vision of the world, I guess, because you do see like, okay, we're not going to get there in 10 years, even if we all would love it, right? We can all use Lightning these days, most of us. We would love to have our coffee shops accept it, but people are just not there yet, and they'll take their time. But I think a big part we can do play a role in is sort of how we present Bitcoin. And what I wanted to ask you, Julian, as a Bitcoin CEO, how do you feel sometimes if you see other like big name Bitcoin CEOs like Corey with Swan, for example, who are very vocal, very out there, sometimes almost like punching people in the face virtually. What is sort of your persona there? Are you a bit more laid back? Do you wish to be more out there? Or what do you think about this?
Yeah, so I think it would definitely be better for the business if I would be more like Corey, if I would be more out there. That's also how he's like, I have, 8,000 followers on Twitter. He has like 210 whatever K. So this shows you how successful he is. And he gets quoted in Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and he's on CNBC talking about Bitcoin and stuff like that. So that I'm not there yet. But the tactics, how to get there, I don't think it's necessarily my persona to shit on people, even if I really don't agree with what they are doing, like shitcoiners, for example. I don't think like I'm not the personality to do this. I'm rather kind of positive rather than negative. But I should, and also I'm not active enough on social media. I feel like I'm quite active, but still, I should do much more. I say things that I feel like I have a say, and I need to say this. And but I think I'm not really made for this kind of CEO. There's different ways how to be a CEO and like a public figure. I like to have at conferences, presentations. I like to do education. I like to speak out loud developments that I see in the world, like economic developments, Bitcoin related developments. For example, I like to talk about this whole commodity versus security token like development from the SEC that is going on, and what implications this will have on the industry. So I'd rather try to take a thought leader position, but that's very hard. But this is the road I would like to take, and where I feel more comfortable as well, than to be very mobilizing, polarizing, and also use a lot of negativity to get more attractive or to attract more attention from social media followings. Even though I think the latter would probably be better in the end, maybe for the business. But that's it. You never know. I think it's more important as a CEO. You're also at the face of a company, and it's important to do things in a way that feels comfortable, and you're authentic. You need to be authentic because your face basically gives the brand also a face. And if I would try to artificially change my personality, people would know, and it would feel awkward for people. So I just try to do my thing and hope it's going to be successful in the end. And I think on the long run, just being yourself and being true to your values that have brought you already far will also bring you further.
You're muted, mate. Yeah.
Oh, it was such a beautiful statement I made as well. It was along the lines of stay humble and lead well, or something like that, I said.
Yeah, good point.
So when can we expect some lightning from Relai?
Yeah, look, so okay, we are trying to do our best to implement it still this year. That's what I can say. And ideally, we would be ready to announce something in Lugano, end of October. But, putting this out there, the team is working hard on it. But it's also not only on us. It's also on the partner that we have chosen for this. We cannot do this alone. It's actually a huge product to stay non-custodially and also integrate Lightning with, at scale with thousands or tens of thousands of users. It's not easy. So that's why we want to take our time. We want to evaluate the best partner. We want to wait until this partner is really not just in beta or something, when it's really ready. And this is still going to take a couple of weeks, months from now. And then we want to integrate it correctly. And so we are happy to take our time if the end result is really perfect. And for us, perfect means it's super user friendly. It feels like just, a couple of clicks transacting. But it's at the same time also non-custodial. This is important for us from an idealistic point of view, but also from a legal point of view, because the same thing that now happens to all of these security tokens, altcoins, on custodial exchanges will also happen to custodial Bitcoin. So it's going to be over-regulated. MiCA and the SEC and everything's going to crack down on custodial services much more than on non-custodial ones. So that's why we want to do it right, and we're taking a bit more time. But ideally, you will hear more in an announcement about Relai plus Lightning end of October at the Lugano Plan B Forum conference.
We're looking forward to that, and we can't wait. And is there, before we finish the episode, and it's been a very interesting one, so thank you for your time, but has there been anything that we should have asked you that we didn't?
No, I think when Lightning is the one that I was waiting for, and now you asked it.
There you go.
This is the community's first priority question. But no, otherwise, I think it was a very, very good episode. We covered a lot of ground here. So thank you for the great moderation and interviews. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Joel, anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I guess Relai on Twitter, Relai, Arsene is everywhere on Twitter, on social. So just look for Relai online. What's your Twitter handle, Julian?
I'm at Julian Liniger, I think. Maybe it's at Julian_Liniger.
Before we post the impersonator.
I can check.
I'll just put it in the show
I
notes.
have quite some impersonators, but I think you'll find out. It's underscore actually, so it's at Julian_Liniger.
There you go. Perfect. It was great having you on, and hope to meet soon again. And who knows, maybe discover the lightning possibilities on Relai.
All right, let's do it. Thank you very much, guys, for having me on. Have a great rest of your day. Talk soon.
Take care.
See you soon.